Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore Positive. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. These are I like the fresh tickets. This is Back to the Future. This is the new promotion, scratch off from the Maryland Lottery. I'll be giving these away here at Beaumont and Catonsville, where life is great in the 21228. And we're also going to be next week on Wednesday at Cooper's North in Timonium Mays Chapel. Then on the 30th at Coco's. Can't wait to get back there. We're doing crab melts that day, so I'm really excited about that. Jamie Costello's coming out for that one. Then on the 7th of May, we will be at Red Brick Station in White Marsh having blueberry ales. I'm having ice water. I'm having a crab cake because it is the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. Former Councilman Tom Quirk is here. Well, it has former sound. Are you always a councilman, or is it forever? Is it a lifetime? Because I call you councilman because Moeller makes me. But other than that,
Former councilman, retired happily.
What are you retired from managing money, or are you retired from retiring?
Oh, no, I'm just retired from the county council, but I run a pretty big company. We manage about $500 million in client assets, clients in 31 states. So
you've had a rough couple weeks, bro. When I reached
difficult.
to you on Facebook and said, "Hey, I'm in Catonsville. You want to come by on Friday?" and then I went through your timeline to see, your causes all in one place, and I'm thinking, my money guy, Leonard Raskin with me, people. This has been a lot of explaining to do for a centrist reformed politician like yourself, that you pissed off Republicans, you pissed off Democrats. Because I tried explaining to my wife, I'm like, he's like one of these really weird Democrats that sort of would caucus with Republicans on fiscal issues, but certainly is not down with what's going on with, a man I affectionately call Shitler in D.C. But how this is affecting your business, our lives, the finances, deficits, let alone with Wes Moore's going through with taxes, including to my industry, this is a taxing time on anybody that understands money, let alone yabos like me that come to people like you to try to clarify what it means when the felon king decides he's going to put tariffs, ridiculous tariffs, on every country in the world that we've gone to war with, not the ones we've gone against. So I'll give you the floor, Tom.
That's right. It is a challenging time, and Liberation Day was anything but Liberation Day. It surprised Wall Street tremendously. Candidly, there were a lot of Wall Street people thinking that the day Liberation Day happened, that the actual announced tariffs were going to be less than what people feared. And the exact opposite happened. The formula that the Trump administration put together didn't make any sense to anybody that had any idea about money. When it comes to, for example, how the formula was put together, they factored in different things like value-added tax, but they factored in trade deficits, which makes zero sense in the world because you and we have a trade deficit when we go get our hair cut. Because when we do business with our barber, for example, our barber is never going to go back and cut our hair. We're only always going to cut our hair at the barber. And so we run a trade deficit with the barber, and we always will.
Unless he buys your widgets.
That's right.
Okay.
And if somehow they come back and buy something from us, but generally speaking, we're going to consume a lot more stuff from other people because the United States, by far, is the biggest GDP country in the world.
We're going to use more of Haiti's goods than they're going to use of ours.
100%.
Right. That's pretty obvious. Okay.
And so
Thanks for educating me. I'm going to call you Professor Quirk. Is what I'm going to call you.
Well, we will never, ever have equal trade deficit with anybody as long as we're more prosperous than other countries. The only way another country could have an equal deficit versus us, say parity, for example, would be if their consumer base was as strong and as good as our prosperity base, then maybe we could have some equalization. But as long as this country's number one GDP, number one consumer base, it's impossible to not have trade deficits with other countries. And we don't want to. Matter of fact, if we have another country that kind of flips the script, that means they've overtaken us. Now they're the most prosperous, the biggest consumption base. So we want to always stay ahead of our competition. And so measuring anything, when you're looking at tariffs and measuring anything that has to do anything with deficits, is completely nonsensical. It makes absolutely zero sense.
All that being said, there's no one like you around the president at this particular point. We've seen this act once for 4 years with injecting bleach and not understanding basic science in so many ways. Educate me from the beginning on the tariff thing, that when a sensible man like you that manages $500 million in assets hears of the word tariff.
Yeah.
Why have I not heard about tariffs since like the Boston Tea Party or since the last time the Republicans wrecked the economy 125 years ago?
That's exactly why I haven't heard, because it takes a little over 100 years to forget how terrible tariffs are. So when Herbert Hoover really pushed for tariffs, it made the Great Depression much, much worse.
By the way, you just said two of the dirty. You could have said Mother Blanker in my father's house. My father was born in 1919 in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Actually born in Elmira, but they were in Scranton, Pennsylvania. 1929, my father was 10 years old and stood in soup lines and never forgot it. And I was born in 68 and came along in the 70s. And my father never voted for a Republican in his life because of Herbert Hoover.
Oh, yeah.
So, my father talked about Herbert Hoover, chicken in every pot. It was a standard part of my life. In the same way, talking about FDR and Kennedy in a reverential term in my household in Dundalk, my steelworker father and Bethlehem Steel. But the Herbert Hoover thing, like, that destroyed my father's faith in Republicans his entire life because he starved to death as a kid when he was 10 years old.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, tariffs were put on to try to protect the farmers during the early 1930s. But what happened, it made the Depression so much worse. Because what happens when you put tariffs on anything? Think of it as protectionism. And what protectionism does from a free market standpoint over a long period of time is it does two things really well. It makes us less competitive. It makes us less innovative. And so our companies literally with tariffs become kind of fat and lazy after a while because they got protectionism. They don't have to worry as much. And then what happens?
You have to buy my stuff,
right? Yeah, and then guess what? Competition like China. If we want China to beat us in the technology battles, all we have to do is put on lots of tariffs because then their companies will start to jump ahead of us because they'll be more competitive and more innovative. Darwinism works in capitalism. You need Darwinism. You need creative destruction because without that, we start losing our edge. And so one of the best things this country has going is we have lots of competition. We have companies competing against other countries. We have states competing against other states. All that competition helps us keep ahead of not only, local competition, but most importantly, global competition. So if somebody says tariffs, all they mean is ultimately protectionism that makes us less competitive and less innovative over time. And that's just the fact.
The tariffs are a deterrent for us to buy anything not made here, period, right?
Yeah, theoretically, but at the end of the day, tariffs just simply don't work. Now, let's be fair about this. Kind of the big picture, what's going on with tariffs is we all know that, for example, if you're going to buy a truck, say in the United States, maybe you spend $65,000. You buy the same truck in Germany, you spend $85,000. So because Germany has these big tariffs, which aren't really fair either. So I think what Elon Musk said, not that I'm a big fan of Elon lately, but what Elon Musk said makes a lot more sense to me. Instead of building tariffs up on both sides, let's take them down on both sides. Then we'll have more free trade, and that free trade in itself will increase GDP. And so, I think ultimately bringing down tariffs on other...
Is that more like what Clinton did with North America?
Well, it's an interesting question with NAFTA. NAFTA goes way back, and then the USMCA that happened under Trump first term, that was like taking some of the tariffs on NAFTA, and then they recreated it with both Mexico and Canada. So in a sense, yes. But in the final analysis, have tariffs from other countries been harmful to us? Sure, they have. And have we had rust belts and people lose their manufacturing jobs and be sent in other countries? They have. And so I think from a purely fair perspective, long term, it makes sense that other countries take their tariffs down. But if we use tariffs and we have tariffs in the United States, trying to force other people to take their tariffs down as a negotiating tool, that's one thing. But if now we just have 10% across the board tariffs for the rest of our life, well, that's a whole different story. Now we got protectionism. Now we got less innovation. We have less competition. Now our businesses are suddenly slowing down, and we have other businesses around the world that are starting to take over because the United States is magnificent. We truly are exceptional if we allow free markets to compete. But if we don't, we're going to lose our exceptionalism. And if we really want China to take over, all we have to do is, raise tariffs and become less competitive and less innovative. That's where tariffs will ultimately lead this country, is no longer the best companies in the world will come from the United States because protectionism just simply doesn't work.
The strangest thing for me is the lack of education and civics and all this stuff with Trump, but the fact that it makes sense to people that it can't possibly make sense to, right? Like, anyone in the space here with tariffs knows this isn't the way it works, right? But there's a television network that's behind selling it in some way. You can't sell the stock. The stock market's the stock market, right? There's no way to take that arm that went straight down for 5 weeks and say that my wife's 401k doesn't care whether it's Fox News or CNN. The number's the number, right?
That's
period.
right.
And that's where you manage money. The volatility of all of this, the frustration for people who manage money, even if they voted for him, and the fact that at the heart of it, no one who's sensible can make sense of it.
Well, you know what's a great point, because when you look at Trump's inner circle, and I watch it, I study it every day, and so for a long time he had two advisors really close to him that were pushing these tariffs hard. One guy was Howard Lutnick, who's the Secretary of Commerce, and then another guy named Peter Navarro. And Peter Navarro is a huge tariff guy. He actually wrote a book, an anti-China book, where he cited a main source that was his expert. Turned out the main source that Peter Navarro was quoting was fictitious. It was him. He was quoting himself. It was kind of bizarre. And so what happened when this whole tariff thing blew up, Liberation Day?
Wasn't he found by Bannon? Wasn't Bannon the one that found
that's
him?
Right. That's exactly right. Yes. And Navarro and Jared.
Well, look, they're all a band of kooks. I mean, from Kennedy, Linda McMahon with A1 sauce instead of AI. And, and the manufacturing part of this is the thought that we're going to become a coal mine country again. I mean, who are you selling this to? I mean, who's buying this outside of the coal mine?
Yeah. No, it's a great point, because what we're starting to see build up, and especially right after Liberation Day, is Peter Navarro and Howard Lutnick really started to become less and less seen out in the public eye. And then what Trump did was he positioned a guy named Scott Bessent, who's the Secretary of the Treasury. Now, Scott Bessent gets this stuff. He really does understand it. But I don't think he won the battle, because I think there's a huge battle internally in the Trump administration. And I think Scott Bessent surely knew that these tariffs, this whole trade war needed to go really slow and measured. I think he lost that battle, because I think Trump ultimately sided with Peter Navarro and Howard Lutnick. And now what happened on Wall Street, now this is really fascinating, is on Wall Street, there's internal discussions. They never go public, unless they can't get their message heard. And so what we saw was, we even saw Elon Musk speak out against tariffs. We saw a guy named Ken Griffin, who runs Citadel, a huge Trump donor, huge Trump supporter. We saw Bill Ackman. There couldn't be any more vocal supporter of Donald Trump. Donated money, big vocal supporter. Bill Ackman, Ken Griffin, Elon Musk, Scott Bessent. We started seeing all those guys start speaking out loudly how terrible this tariff idea was. And then what happened, we saw the bond market kind of blow up. Like, I was watching it. I was watching it closely. We had the 10-year Treasury go from 3.9% up to 4.5%. Now, for people that aren't paying attention to yields, doesn't seem like a big move. 3.9 to 4.5 happened in a couple of days. That's really bad. That's a big flashing signal that things are really going to blow up. And so because of that, we saw the 90-day pause. That Trump had to do that because the bond market vigilantes spoke. They said, this is ridiculous. You got to stop this. You got to slow it down. That's why we had the 90-day pause. Plus, we had people like Bill Ackman, Ken Griffin, Elon Musk, a bunch of really big donors. The guy that runs owned Home Depot, started Home Depot. They all started speaking out very publicly, trying to get their message across, because clearly the group that's kind of leery of tariffs, their message wasn't getting through. It's getting through now.
All right. So once again, much like the first term, it's just a bunch of bourgeois that, like in the end, this tariff thing was just him clapping and making a noise, but it's affected every person I see on the streets.
Yeah.
Financial. And I saw you said it's going to take years to get,
Yeah, I'll talk about that because, so we just wiped out $6 trillion in stock market wealth in a couple of days. $6 trillion. By the way, if you go back to
I can't comprehend. That doesn't mean anything to me. But go ahead.
I'll give you a stat.
That's hundreds of millions and billions. I don't know how many billions is trillions. It's just a lot of zeros.
$6 trillion's a lot.
It's very Carl Sagan to me.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah. So we wipe off $6 trillion in market cap due to a really bad Liberation Day and an absolutely nonsensical tariff policy. It makes zero sense. So let's think about that. It's wiping out. Ooh.
Chef's bringing me crab cake tour. I'm gonna get you on in a minute. He's teaching me about tariffs. Hold on now. Hold on, Maurice. Go ahead.
It's hard to talk about tariffs.
We're looking at that's there's a tariff. You take half, I take half. There we go. 50-50. There's your tariff. Go ahead.
Okay, so we wipe out $6 trillion in stock market wealth. in a couple days because of a really, really bad Liberation Day.
About as fast as I'm going to wipe out this crab cake.
and then, but let's just think about these jobs that will be relocated to the United States. Okay, so lose $6 trillion in market wealth. How long is it going to take for Apple, for example, to move 10% of their business to the United States? How many years do you think it will take for Apple to move 10% of its business? According to Dan Ives at Wedbush Securities, it's going to take Apple 3 years to move 10% of their business back to the United States. And it's going to cost them $30 billion. That's just Apple. That's just one example.
And why are they going to do that?
Well, I think if they do that, they'll be doing it out of pressure because Trump will pressure them to do it or to face restrictions. Like, for example, NVIDIA.
I'd like to know how that's going to work when we start bullying the rest of the world and thinking that that's a good idea. I know how it works when I took my passport out to go to Canada a couple weeks ago. And it's not it fundamentally isn't who we are. It's not what we stood for on the world stage. It's not what my parents stood for. It's not what everybody. It's not what Don Moe. It's not what every good citizen I've ever known stands for. Yet up and down my timeline,
that's right,
there are people that have been brainwashed through ignorance, lack of civics, lack of social studies, not knowing enough good people around them to think that somehow this cult that doesn't make any sense to people could make sense. And I'm just blown away the second time around, the lawlessness that he has shown all of his life, that we're shocked that he's breaking the law every day.
Yeah,
and that will break the law.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an excellent point, because you can't be a bully, hit somebody over the head, and expect them to be friends with you. I mean, they might pretend they're friends, but they're really not. And let me give you 2 examples right now that's happening in real life. If you talk to a lot of business owners, especially business owners in tourism in Maine, ask them how their summer's looking. A lot of them have had many, many cancellations from Canadians. They're not coming anymore. And then I have a client down in Bonita Springs, Florida. She just told me she's listing her house in Bonita Springs because she's ready to downsize. She said there's 50 other listings in Bonita Springs right now in her community alone. Like, what's happening there? She said the Canadians are selling their homes. They're done with it. They're moving back to Canada. So that's just one anecdotal type of thing, but I'm sure that's happening all over the places. We're pissing off or we're upsetting our friendly allies we've had for many, many years. Well, that's going to have economic consequences, not only on tourism, that's going to have consequences on people that own, businesses, own assets in the United States, and they might just pack their bags and leave, and some are, unfortunately. That's not good for anyone.
Well, let's get to the state for a minute. By the way, I'm going to get Chef Maurice out here because this crab cake, my wife's not getting any of this. I'm going to eat this before I get out of here. But Wes Moore has not been on the show. I'm just sort of I'll out Wes at this point because I don't talk much about him because he hasn't been around. I travel the state. I talk to electeds, former electeds. By the way, Tom Quirk is here, former councilman. I keep wanting to call you a delegate, but a councilman here in Baltimore County. We're at Beaumont eating delicious crab cakes. So Wesson running the state with the tax thing and the people that already want out of the state, I'm thinking for the deficit that's happened very, very quickly, and certainly Hogan was bragging about how much money he left in the till, and the bridge going down, the federal jobs. I have a call out to Martin O'Malley about Social Security, which is 3 miles away from here, and we got employees over here getting sacked. We've got NSA. We've got all of the federal, 5.3% of the federal workforce is based in the state of Maryland, right? Yep. You mentioned tourism. You like Ocean City. I like Ocean City. Tom Perlazzo likes Ocean City. Every time I'm down there, whether it's H-2B visas on the Eastern Shore for crab cakes, where these crabs come from in the Choptank River, and I've been down to Cambridge and walked and shot video there as a journalist. Ocean City, every time I go in a place in Ocean City, there are young people there from Poland, from Ukraine, from Eastern Europe, from other countries, Ireland, that come over to work in the summer that now all of a sudden – their parents don't want them coming over here. They don't want to come over. And Ocean City's not I'm sure Myrtle Beach is that. I'm sure all these transient beach communities use summer help from other places, let alone everyone that might look a little Venezuelan. I'm hiding my MS-13 tattoo here underneath it. But people look like me are getting put in cages and thrown away. And the people that work in fields that look like me that pick this broccolini and the potatoes that came with this and the lemon that's on the platter. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's just racism. I can't sell it any other way because it's not rooted in anything that should be part of the American ideology. But all of that comes down, and now Wes Moore's on the wrong side of color, state, politics, like all of that, to get any help from this guy, right? I'm gravely concerned that this is going to affect us, you, me, Catonsville, Maryland, the DMV, maybe more than it's going to affect any other place in the country if we're going to gut the government, if we're just going to completely gut the government and not have a government anymore.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely terrible. The DOG is going to be disproportionately, obviously, pretty rough for not only the county, the state. Virginia's going to get hit really hard because people are worried about their jobs. If people are worried they're going to lose their jobs or they actually get fired from their jobs, obviously they don't spend money, and that affects small businesses dramatically. And some people in Maryland are just going to move. I mean, I've talked to a couple of people that work for Social Security that are now retiring, going to move out of state. That's not helpful. They make pretty good incomes.
Where do you try to send people? You're a money guy. Where would you send somebody? Because everybody's a Republican in my world that manages money, and they would say Florida, Florida, Florida. And I've met that creep that runs the state down there. I saw him on my timeline. I ran into him last year at a baseball game down in Fort Myers. I don't know that there's any Valhalla on a tax basis, right? I mean, the places that you want to go, they're Republican states, right? If you're a Democrat that's looking to flee, I don't know where the safe places are in this country anymore.
But Delaware is pretty decent. I mean, they have very low property taxes. They don't have any sales tax. Delaware is a fairly competitive state. A lot of retirees go there because
Well, that's a real problem for Maryland.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Especially in the beach, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I was talking to a friend of mine who actually is a big economic development director for Virginia, and we were talking about this recent kind of budget that just passed. And he said in Virginia, they don't even worry about Maryland. They just dismiss Maryland. They think more about North Carolina. They think more about Tennessee as far as who they need to be competitive, but they don't even think about Maryland. And now they shouldn't have to think about Maryland even more because the IT tax is absolutely nonsensical. They really need to undo that next budget because we do not want to have a sign for any IT services company or technology company saying you're not welcome. I mean, that's where all the growth is. So it makes absolutely zero sense whoever came up with that idea.
Did anybody explain this to Wes Moore?
I don't know who came up with the idea, but whoever did, it's just a bad idea.
I mean, Wes Moore's a guy that I supported him when he was polling at 2%. I've had him at State Fair. I saw him a couple weeks ago. I can't defend it. I mean, it's indefensible to me, and that's the reason he won't come and sit with me because I don't think he could defend it either. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, Todd Marks runs a company called MindGrub. He's a friend of mine. He's a neighbor of mine. We talk quite a bit. And I was talking to Todd. He's like, hey, I'm starting to look. I'm going to go look in Tennessee. I'm going to go look in Nevada. We're not staying in Maryland. And that's a guy that has, over 100 employees who's a great innovator. He's so mad he's moving. And that's not like his threat. He's moving. He's leaving because of this IT tax. It makes zero sense for people like Todd Marks to literally run for the exits after this really silly idea. The IT tax is absolutely incredibly
Why is it silly? Break that down for me.
Because it discourages IT services companies from locating here. Like if I'm a CEO and I have an IT services company and somebody puts Maryland on the list, if I go to Maryland now, I'll be fired. And I should be fired because why to go to a state that has a literally do not enter sign for IT services now? That's what we have. And so other technology companies will see that. And even if it's not affecting them directly, Maryland's going to now be labeled anti-tech. That's the last thing we want. We want data centers. We want the technology companies. We want the IT services. We don't want to tax
Why
them more.
Why are we so hurting for taxes? What the hell happened here the last couple of years?
I'll tell you exactly what happened is the blueprint, for schools.
Okay.
It's completely, even when the blueprint was passed, no one, and I mean anybody, believed that there was a way to pay for it. If you go back and you research it and you look at the blueprint and you look at the debate, at the time this thing was discussed, people said on both sides, hey, if this gets passed, we're going to have to raise taxes by maybe $3 billion to really pay for it. So I think the blueprint was absolutely unfeasible. It was not feasible to pass the blueprint. We could never even afford it even when we passed it. And so I think if Democrats really want to support schools and we want to support different government programs, we have to be honest about how we're going to pay for it. And if we're going to vote for something, no, we can't pay for it unless we increase taxes, completely increase taxes. Well, that makes zero sense. And that's not really being the best representative to the people you serve.
That made you really unpopular with the Democrats, right? Caucusing with the Democrats a couple years ago, I did a lot on the blueprint here. Mueller was an advocate for it and bringing all the advocates on for it. And I did have even Democrat, I think you might have been one of them sitting here at Christmas a couple years ago saying it's going to be really expensive. I mean, I probably can look you up, and I think it was a part of our conversation because you were pragmatic and realistic about it. I'm idealistic, like everyone else.
Yeah.
I want kids to be educated, and
Same.
I would love that all these people are getting fired from all these other places, and federal government would go to teaching and go to, there's nothing more important than investing in our kids. I believe in that. I don't even have a child at this point, that's of that age at all. But I would have no problem if we had better young people, better schooling, all of that. We would have better leadership, and people wouldn't be voting for this clown that they're voting for at this point if we had better education. We're burning books. We're taking, Jackie Robinson and Harriet Tubman off of, they're going to come after Coppin State and want to take Fannie Jackson Coppin's name off because she's an African American. It's crazy, like what they're trying to do culture war-wise, but what our state is doing in the swirl of this and how Wes is perceived as a presidential candidate or just as a guy who's going to get the bridge rebuilt and fix Baltimore, right? He inherited this blueprint thing, right? So as much as it's on him to figure out how to pay for it, Larry Hogan never thought it was a good idea to begin with because the math, as a Republican, he didn't like the math. As a money manager Democrat, you didn't like the math, right?
Math didn't work unless we were really prepared to raise taxes by an exorbitant amount of money. That's the only way
and that the
works.
public would be willing to accept that.
That's
on
right.
behalf.
And I don't think they would. And I think most people that voted for the blueprint knew that. And so I think it's irresponsible if you're going to vote for a blueprint that you can't pay for without increasing taxes incredibly. Well, that's maybe a disservice. And I think
or at least be honest about it.
That's right. That's right. And then I think another thing with this budget that really was upsetting to me is the Moore administration goes say we're not raising taxes for 94% of Marylanders. So that's the talking point. But that's not really true because part of the cost cutting was shifting some of this cost to the local government. Okay, so maybe the state's not paying tens of millions of dollars, is shifting now to the local government.
You're going to pay more in Catonsville for it.
And it's the same taxpayer. So the Catonsville taxpayer is the same state taxpayer. So if the governor's saying, well, we're cutting costs, but you're just shifting costs to the local government, this is still the same taxpayers that are going to have to pay for it. And so now the local government has to figure out, hey, where do we get these revenues now to offset more of this money that's now been passed on to us under the guise of saving costs? It's not. If you're the same taxpayer, you're paying the taxes whether you're in Baltimore County or whether you're in Montgomery County.
Well, I mean, maybe that's the real question at the top end of this math. By the way, former Councilman Quirk is here. We're at beautiful Beaumont. I have delicious crab cakes. It is the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. I'm going to wrap things up. I got to get Chef out here to talk about these crab cakes in a minute, too, if we can do that, Paulie. You're the pragmatist, and if I make you king of the world or governor of Maryland, and the money side of this, where could or should that money? Where would you recommend that we raise? Is it toll booths? Is it tourism? Is it entertain? I'm just saying.
I think a lot of the work has to be done in making government more efficient and possibly cutting some. If we have some inefficiencies, maybe cutting some of the government that we can identify. But I'll tell you one thing I wouldn't do. One thing I definitely wouldn't do is I wouldn't increase taxes on the top 6% of Maryland, which we just did, by a significant amount, because the top 10% of people that have disposable income, they spend 50% of the consumer money in the economy, like places like this restaurant we're in. So if we chase 1 or 2% of the top income earners in Maryland out of the state, that's going to affect small businesses all over the place. So I think this idea of, hey, let's just tax higher income earners more, higher income earners can just move. And we're going to see that, unfortunately. And that's going to hurt small business.
I had a partner, Brian Billick, came 7-8 years ago and said, if I die in Maryland, it's going to cost my family $10 million, millions of dollars. If I die in another more tax-friendly state, and I just have to make that decision on behalf of my family that, being a Maryland resident is not beneficial if you have over X amount of money, right? I mean, that's true for anyone who's done well for themselves in this state, right?
And that's right. And you know what really irritates me to no end is to hear, and I won't mention any names, but I'm tempted to. I won't mention names, but some of the politicians the highest income earners need to pay their fair share. Well, that's ridiculous because the highest income earners in this county and in this state, if they just moved to any other state, would probably easily save $50,000, $100,000 a year just by living in a different state. So when I hear
that would pay for their home if they have that kind of money, right? Literally, right? You could literally just say, I have a beautiful $1.8 million house here in Catonsville. I'm out on the fringe. I'm in that tax bracket. Wherever I am, I can literally just sell it, move to another place, and it will finance itself.
It would save the higher income earners in Maryland tons of money because it's a high tax state, and by driving higher income earners out of the state, it hurts small business. So there's no way anybody convinced me that this budget was a pro-growth, pro-business budget. It wasn't. It's going to do the opposite.
It was a cover-your-ass budget, kind of, sort of, right? It had to be. That's all they had, right?
In fairness, a lot of tough decisions had to be made, and the governor was dealt a bad hand because now he's got to either break promises to the blueprint, or he's got to raise taxes or cut spending. And I'll tell you, one thing I think governments did really wrong during COVID is they had all this money from the federal government, so tons of money coming in, and so what they did was they spent it, and some of the money was spent on ongoing operations when it was one-time capital infusions. And now if you have
it was a stimulus is what we're talking about,
that's right? Yeah, that's right. But if you fund ongoing operations with one-time money, you are setting up a scenario that just doesn't work.
Then it's not
a bad idea.
It's not budgeted for once the money's out.
That's right. When COVID money came, this free
like spending lottery money.
That's right.
Right? Exactly, right?
And you can't budget ongoing operations. Like you shouldn't be increasing like state employee role. You shouldn't be increasing county employee roles during that time, but it's always tempting because, you got the money now, and you kind of tend to think
we'll figure it out later.
That's right.
And figuring it out later means tax.
And now we're paying the price for it. And that's exactly what happened.
Are we going to make it?
I think we'll need a little different leadership. I think we need much more pro-business people that are being elected, whether Democrat, whether it's Republican. I think this country needs to start voting for people that have more business sense and that actually understand numbers. As simple as that sounds, I don't think a lot of people understand numbers at all. And I think we got to get rid of gerrymandering. Across the country, because all we're doing is we're voting in the primaries for the more extreme left and more extreme right. And it's designed that way. The system's designed for failure because now that we just got the extremes, that because of the way we elect people with gerrymandering, we actually get the extremes more and more.
Well, and you also have a man who's the richest man in the world financing a fascist at $400 million, right? Like, so the money in politics, the thing that grossed me out the most when Moeller and I began this thing and I started talking about running for mayor was how much in the clique of people who run, it's all about money, 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 and who's got money, and I got that guy, he's got money, he's got this, he's a developer, he's that. And, like, that skeeved me out from the beginning, and I would never have run like that. I was never going to run that. I explained to you and everybody else that wasn't going to be my kind. But apparently that's 99.9% of the wins anywhere. It's based on that. It's based on money, even at the smallest elections.
Yeah, and I think we can break that down some if we get rid of gerrymandering, and then maybe look at things like ranked choice voting. So it's no longer like a binary choice, like I have to vote for Trump or I have to vote for Harris. Like instead, maybe we rank choice and say, well, my first choice is this person, but then my second choice is this person. So I think we might have to redo how we vote for people, and I think we have to get rid of gerrymandering, and I think we have to do a balanced budget amendment, except for times of war or Great Depression, because there's no way in the world Congress is ever going to vote for any budget that they're not running these huge budget deficits every year. It's preposterously ridiculous.
Well, they don't have to worry about paying for it, right?
That's right. And then it's our kids and our grandkids that pay for it. And so how does that do anybody? I mean, the generational kind of it's really kind of sad and unfortunate.
We're the most prosperous country in the history of the world, right?
And we
have phones here with every piece of information, and great food here at Beaumont. We live in a culture of abundance, and yet within 3 blocks of here, somebody's hungry right now, literally, right?
That's right, and we're also kind of shifting all this burden to our kids and grandkids, which I think is just generationally an abdication of responsibility. It's the opposite of what the World War II generation did. What they did, they sacrificed and they saved and they made sure their kids had a better future.
And we were the beneficiaries.
That's right, 100%. And then unfortunately what happened with baby boomers collectively, not anyone individually, but they're basically spending all the money and they're taking it with them, whether it's Social Security, whether it's Medicare, whether it's pensions, whether it's cruising. They're spending all the money and their kids and their grandkids are paying for it. That's all we're doing. We build up debt. We're just passing that debt to our kids and grandkids. So,
Paulie, grab Chef for me if you can. I want to bring him out here, talk about these crab cakes. Talk about Catonsville a little bit, because we're here in Beaumont, and I have I asked for the broccolini, and they brought me the broccolini here. So it's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. You got the Back to the Future scratch-offs. Former Councilman Quirk is here. We're here at the Beaumont. My wife and I eat dinner here probably twice a month. We stand at the bar. Come on over, chef. Hey, jump in here. Let me get you in here and get you mic'd up. We'll make some room for you because he made these delicious crab cakes here. I want to make sure we get him into because he came to me about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I said, you're going to be making me lunch today about 3. Dude, I've been sitting here. What was Mike down for me? I've been sitting here. You go. I've been sitting here for 6.5 hours, I think, and I haven't eaten anything, man. I'm ready to eat your food. Yeah, absolutely. I got to get you, Mike, going. There you go.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. How are you?
Good, man. I've been actually in the background listening to y'all talk about tariffs and stuff.
You learning anything? I'm trying to get through my hard head.
I try to stay up with the politics, just so I know what's going on for myself.
Right. You got to. You're an American, right?
Absolutely.
All right, man. Now, you've been with the company a long time. You opened Guapo down the street, right?
Yeah, opened up Guapo about, I want to say it's going on 5 years ago.
Well, it was during the plague. I mean, Evan, you talk about economy and Catonsville. This is an area that has thrived here in the time that I've known you in the last decade. You've been working out here. I love Beaumont. I love everything you guys do over at State Fair and seeing Keith over there. But give me the crab cake combinations. It's been a little while since I've had the crab cake combination out here. I haven't had a crab cake at Beaumont. Dude, I get the steak out here. I get the chicken fried. I get the salad. My wife loves the pork tenderloin. So I just never get the crab cakes here. I don't know.
Yeah, everyone loves it's actually not the pork tenderloin, it's the ribeye.
Ribeye, that's what I meant.
Yeah, the pork ribeye.
Pork ribeye.
It's a little different.
Well, hold on. The other night you served it. I got it, and it came over the cream spinach, and it had the barbecue sauce on the top.
Yeah.
Man, that was dirty and perfect.
That's one of our top sellers. I think it's a little different, and then the flavor combination goes together well. It actually comes
mac
with
and cheese.
Yeah, I kind of was like, I don't know, it's a lot of starch, but everybody loves it, so I if it's not broken, I don't want to fix it.
Well, I asked for mashed potatoes here because I'm starchy, you know. What's your favorite thing on the menu?
My favorite thing on the menu, hands down, would be the lamb app.
The lamb chops.
Yeah, the lamb chop.
We got those the other night.
And that peach barbecue sauce that we actually put on a pork ribeye, that also goes with the lamb barbecue chops. But I just turned my app into an entree. I put sides with it. I literally just had it the other day.
He's saying to me what my wife said to me. My wife flew in from New Hampshire the other night, Monday night. I picked her up. We came over here to eat. We're at the bar, 7 o'clock. She loves the pork ribeye. I keep calling it tenderloin, but it's ribeye. Yeah. And she ordered it, and I wasn't all that hungry, so I split a salad, and we love the lamb chops here. And we ordered the lamb chops. She's like, it comes with the same sauce, right? And I don't know if she's egging me to get something different or whatever, but she loves the lamb chops. So I gave her 2 of them instead of the 3, and then I had a little bit of the pork. But lamb chops for me, but I'm chicken fried lobster for me.
Chicken fried
lobster fried.
Lobster. Did I say chicken fried lobster? Is that what I said?
Fried lobster.
Fried
love
lobster.
it, love it.
It's a chicken fried lobster, right?
Well, they
Lobster
only use
tail.
that term when they're referring to like chicken fried steak.
Yeah.
But it's like a breaded.
I love it. That's my favorite. By far, I always get it. Appetizer.
So it's dipped in buttermilk. One of our chefs, Chef Nay, she made an awesome dredge. I'm not messing with that at all.
I've had Sinead on. She's the best.
Yeah, so that's one of our top sellers as far as apps, too.
I love it. I love
It's real
it.
simple. We got a garlic herb butter that goes with it.
Yep.
It's divine.
It is divine.
And it's the only place I've ever really had it. It's almost tempura, but not tempura. It kind of has that. It has everything I love. Yeah. So I'm going to give a secret away here. Evan, if you're watching, I hope you are, because it's inspired a little bit by Evan. I started the crab cake tour 6 years ago, and it was about eating crab cakes, but it was about every place has a crab cake, right? I mean, every place has a crab cake, and they're all different, and I knew they'd be different. So I knew I could talk to chefs about it, and it's a fun Maryland thing. But it's really my live show, and it's become like the reason I can get together with a rock star, a football agent, a money manager and councilman, a chef, and sit in the window here on a beautiful day and do it, right?
That's
so
right.
The crab cake tour. And people are like, you rank the crab cakes? I'm like, no, they're all friggin' great. They're all different. I can't wait to eat this one, see how it is. But I did crab cakes, and then I did a summer where I did 30 crab cakes in 30 days for my 30th anniversary, and I did it in every county, all 23 counties in the city. So I had one in every county, and I traveled in August. The next year, I did it again, all in different crab cake places, but I stopped at breweries. I drank a lot of beer that month. It was August 3 years ago. Last year, I decided to do oysters because Damie at Fadley's, who's opening the Fishmonger's Daughter, who was here about an hour ago, she brought me fried oysters in a show with molar like 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh, that's great. And I'm thinking, I don't eat fried oysters. Why don't I eat fried oysters? Because if you had them on your menu, and you might, there's 12 things in line on the menu. I just never get down to fried oysters. I get the shrimp, I get the fish, I get the steak, whatever I get. But it's delicious. And then she gives me the whole Miss Maryland thing that O'Malley would say. The oysters, they oxygenate the bay. They're the reason we have crab cakes. No oysters, no crab cakes, right? From an ecosystem in the grasses and the marshes. And I'm like, Oyster Recovery Partnership, Maryland. I went down to Hooper's Island. I saw oyster shells as big as that tree down in Hooper's Island. So I traveled the state, and I'm skinny, chef, right? So, I mean, I eat a lot for being skinny. This summer, what I'm doing for the first time, it's my 27th anniversary of the radio station. It's the 35th year I've been on the air, but I'm doing 27 days of my 27 favorite things to eat that you can go to a restaurant and get that are available. There's a couple of RIPs, Nacho Mama's salsa, can't get it anymore. Burke's onion rings, can't get anymore. Angelina's crab cake on my side of town, can't get anymore. So I'm honoring all of them, but I'm picking my 27 favorite things, and I've already got the dates fixed. I got 2 or 3 dates that are open where I'm trying to try new things, see if I can find something new to add to the list. And I'm not going to give it away, but there are desserts, there are dishes, there are sandwiches, there are platters. I'm going to call it chicken fried lobster. You're going to correct me. Just call it fried lobster. What do we call it? Fried lobster?
Fried lobster tail.
It's great. It's definitely
It's
my favorite.
on my list, and I'm going to do the show here. I think I'm doing it at Guapo because I told Evan I haven't been to Guapo in a year and a half to do the show. I want to sit
Doing it in
there.
the basement or upstairs?
I don't know, but you're going to bring me that chicken fried lobster, whatever you're calling it, because it's on my list. So it is. I'll talk about your lamb chops. I love them. I love the chicken and waffles at State Fair. I love the pozole. Is that your recipe?
Pozole?
Yeah, at Guapo. Is that your recipe?
I helped put it together, me and Ricardo.
Those are my 2 favorite things in the whole family, is the pozole at El Guapo and the fried lobster here. So I'm going to feature in these 27 dishes. I think the fried lobster is the thing I want to feature.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
So
Every time I
wrong.
come here, I get that. That's my favorite. By far, that's my favorite.
And why do you get it? Because you can't get it anywhere else.
That's right. Appetizer's the best. And really, it's
Nobody does
incredible.
it like you do.
And lobster's unforgiving, man. You really have to have temperature and time control is like a huge factor. You shouldn't even fry it more than 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah, you guys
Get
got
rubbery,
it down.
right?
Yeah, it'll definitely get rubbery on you if you overcook it,
Yeah.
and you definitely don't want to undercook it.
Yeah.
I could talk food
It's a
all day.
delicate
man.
balance,
And
though.
you and I could go all night about what makes a steak delicious.
Yeah.
But I paid you. Did you make my meal Monday night? Were you working Monday night? I don't even know.
I was.
All right, man. Well, you made me dinner Monday night. So you made the lamb chops. And when the pork came out, Paulie was my server. And I said to him, because Larry Stewart was at the bar here. Stu was supposed to come by today, and he had an NCAA meeting. And Coppin's my partner. I mean, I have Coppin on all the time. I had on there a director of graduate services this week. She was wonderful. But Stu was here, and he looked over. He said, "What's that, man?" And I said, "That's I called it pork tenderloin, but she corrected me, ribeye." I'm like, "All right, ribeye," and it was so dirty and down and dirty in that cream spinach in the bottom, and it just worked. And I said to him, I think when I got it here a couple of years ago, it came with the cream spinach in a bowl, and it came with the macaroni and cheese. It was perfect over the spinach, over the bed of spinach. It was just dirty and pleasant, man. I got that barbecue, and I got the cream mixed with the barbecue, which mixed with the spinach. Phenomenal, man.
Definitely a
Phenomenal.
delicious combination.
Thanks for making me dinner.
I'm making little small tweaks while I'm here. I'm changing. I'm old school as far as my culinary thought process. So if it's not edible, it shouldn't be on the plate.
You're fine, Donnie.
We can
man,
get away
right?
with the planks though. The planks, you can put a vessel on there that holds something.
Well, you bring me a whole plank on a steak, right? It comes out, it looks like a whole butcher's platter.
That's the only exception with the planks though.
All right, well, keep doing everything you're doing. For all of you out here, I'm very appreciative of you, Evan, Keith, everybody. Donnie's so wonderful to me. The whole family here has been awesome. And it's wonderful to have you on the show, man.
I'm glad to be here, man. And a lot of people, they don't really know about the history of crab cakes. Maryland, Baltimore, we're known for it, but they don't know dated back into the 30s, how it really got popularized around the whole country, and they attribute a lot of it to the Native Americans. So when the colonies were formed and the settlers came from England, it really came from their minced meat, and then they took the crabs that the Native Americans used to get, and then they made the cakes.
Well,
like,
nobody wanted to eat crab. It was a poor man's food, right? And the throwaway.
Same with lobster.
Yeah.
And the oysters were what we went to war over. I mean, Dan Rodricks did the show with me, talked about the oyster wars and oyster police. There are shirts that they have at the oyster recovery that says oyster police.
Wow.
Oyster police was like the Dodge of 100 years ago because they would kill each other out on the boats, the oyster boats. They would shoot each other over the oysters. Like this was a thing. I did the research on this. Nobody wanted the crabs because the crabs were everywhere, and now the crab is the delicacy.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, and I've had the difference. This Chinese crab meat, no offense, even the crab meat from North Carolina or out of Texas, more salty, more. The Maryland meat is sweeter because of the brining and the fact that the marshes and the way that the dirty water is here makes our crabs bigger, fatter, late season, upper Chesapeake, sweet. It's just different. And I talked to everybody
50%
about
of the
that.
crabs in the U.S., as far as blue crabs, are from Maryland.
And by the way, Italy has a crab problem. You read about this yet?
No.
You're a smart guy, Councilman. Italy has crabs, blue crabs, and they don't know what to do with them.
Wow.
They're trying to eradicate them.
Bring them over here.
That's what I'm saying. Get us on a plate. Get me an Air Italia flight. All right, Councilman Quirk is out here. We're here at beautiful Beaumont. Chef Maurice is here mixing up just magic. By the way, first Back to the Future, a ticket is going to go to the chefs. So good luck to you. I hope you win 10 grand on that. For everybody out here, John Allen, my dear friend, Paulie for keeping us sane around here, and Mel and everybody at the bar, and of course Chad Weasley, my NFL agent buddy. Stu, I'm going to come find you over Coppin State. I'll get him on. Councilman, thank you very much for
Good to see you.
education. You learned something today, Mark?
Absolutely. Was listening to y'all in the background, man. It's all about learning. Everybody knows something. Nobody knows everything.
That's right.
Well, listen,
That's right.
you're a historian, Councilman, and whatever that Boston Tea Party thing is, one on the tariffs, you let me know. We're going to just don't throw the crabs back in the water.
That's
but
right.
We're going to throw something in the water. Let's heal the country, right?
Absolutely need to. People together, they got to come together again.
All right, we're going to come together next Wednesday and do this again at Cooper's North. We're going to be doing Oriole baseball. Luke's at the ballpark all weekend with the Reds. We have the NFL draft next week. Unbelievable combination of guests this week. I got great stuff happening next week. We're signing off from Catonsville here at beautiful Beaumont. Come on over and visit him on Frederick Road. Life is great in the 21228. I am Nestor. We are WNST AM 1570, and we never stop talking. Baltimore positive.
There you go.